Hello, and you should be listening to another episode of Let's Drone Out. Got quite a full house here. Andrew. Oh well, Andrew doesn't speak, but he's here. You got Jay Chipko.
Hello, hello. Oh, we've got a delay from Andrew there, but hello.
Andrew. Speak again.
I think he did say he had some internet issues, so he might not be able to speak much.
Yes, I'm still here.
I think he only speaks when one of us speaks.
Yeah, exactly. Just to cut over the top.
Jay Chipko.
Well, hello again. Hello.
Yeah. Someone who really matters in the community, the king of Banggood. That's pretty rude. Joshua Bardwell.
The king of Banggood.
Yeah.
I do shop at Banggood a lot.
What an honourable title.
Yep.
Not to be confused with the king of Hobby King.
I'm not sure which of those I'd prefer. I shop at Banggood more than I shop at Hobby King. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Yep. We've got the Prince of Banggood. NJ Tech.
Good evening.
And if there ever was a jester of Banggood, it'll be the FPV hoovering guru, Tony.
Bonjour. I've never ever shot at Banggood.
He can't wait. He can't. He's like the lead time on it is bad,
It's
ridiculous. I'm for the last time. Unfortunately, some sad news. I will be your host right until I fly. Unfortunately, I am leaving. I'm sorry, Tony.
Yeah.
I'm gonna quit too then.
You go in as well.
Well,
You've had
sometimes
enough.
yeah, but
It's okay. I will relieve you of the burden that is Tony. And take it into whatever trash can I dwell in. So anyway, so Josh, I'm glad I nagged you and got you back on.
Me too.
Oh man, I remember chatting to you and how much I enjoyed it, and I wanted to go out on a high note, and who better to talk to than my last chance of edumacation from Dronos, and like teach me. So a few things I wanted to ask you was, have you enjoyed soft mounting your things yet?
Yeah, well, I soft mount my flight controllers now. I think you're referring to soft mounting motors, which is sort of a running joke, I guess. That some people
the soft mounting your ESCs is the joke.
Yes, soft mounting your props, soft mounting your ESCs, and people joke about this because they think it's gone a little bit far. But soft mounting your gyro is, if you look in any other field, actual industrial fields, scientific fields, the idea that you would hard mount a gyro is just preposterous. And I don't know that because I'm in those fields. I know that because people who say that they're in those fields tell me that. So just repeating that, but it makes sense. And we only started hard mounting them because we could get away with it. You remember, if you go back far enough, people did soft mount their flight controllers back before the days of NAS 32 with the KK boards and the whatever. And it was only with the mini quads that the prop fundamental got high enough frequency, and the magnitude of the vibrations got small enough that we could get away with hard mounting. And so we did. But now the gyros have gotten more sensitive, and we're starting to see problems like mid throttle oscillation, like gyro twitches come out, and people say, "Oh, what's wrong with gyros?" Nothing's wrong with them. They've just finally caught up with the rest of the industry. But you can't always soft mount your flight controller. And so in those cases, I think soft mounting motors is a legitimate approach, as ridiculous as some people seem to think it sounds. But no, there's no reason to soft mount your ESCs. They don't make vibration.
The other thing was, I was wondering, did you catch the news about the Dominic dropping a bombshell about
yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, Cleanflight. Yeah. No, you explain it. Go on.
Well, apparently, so here's how it went. There was Cleanflight, and then Boris came along and started coding like a madman. And for a while, you could only get, there wasn't even Betaflight this then. It was just Cleanflight, but Boris was working on it. And he never even really, I think, forked or branched or whatever the term for it is. He was just doing this work on the side, and you would download hexes. Sometimes you would even just have to get them from Dropbox or something. But his development, and he was pushing those changes back into Cleanflight. But Dominic is very protective of his code. Dominic's the Hydra, the Cleanflight developer. He's very protective of his code, and he wants it moving a little slower, a little more tested and cleaner, to be honest. That's why he called it Cleanflight, that the code was focused on being clean and maintainable and not just performance. And of course, Boris went a whole nother direction and just was coding like a madman. And eventually we got Betaflight. It became an official thing, and Betaflight got leaps and bounds ahead of Cleanflight in so many ways. The PID logic, I mean, go back to Cleanflight 1.11 or 1.10. Just you can do that. You could do this today if you really feel motivated. You could just take your copter, save the config, flash it to Cleanflight 1.10. It's right there in the pull down menu. Go fly it and see how it flies. And it's a real eye opener how far we've come in just a year or maybe 2 years. Well, anyway, Dominic finally bit the bullet and said, "You're right. Betaflight's too far ahead, and we're never going to catch up." This is my interpretation. And he just rebased Cleanflight. Basically, Cleanflight is Betaflight. It's a copy paste. But it's not just that Cleanflight became Betaflight. Cleanflight did have a few really exciting features that Betaflight didn't have. One of them is an abstraction layer between the configuration options and I don't know. What it means is that you may be able to upgrade between different versions without losing your config. And that things like saving and restoring config are going to work better. But essentially, that's the big thing. Cleanflight is basically, as of today, Cleanflight is just a copy paste of Betaflight, more or less.
Yeah, because like Cleanflight, is, you know, it had such a nice clean code that if you implemented something new that you wanted to test to see whether it would affect, you know, if it worked, you're then left questioning, is it my code or is it Betaflight? Because there is just patches upon patches, and that's kind of how Baseflight started, you know, falling down. It was just a mess.
Yeah. Yep. So I think Dominic's position, he posted about this. His position is that both Cleanflight and Betaflight benefit from this. That for example, Betaflight has F4 and F7 processor support. It's been well tested, and that's something that Cleanflight, frankly, I would be really surprised if Cleanflight had as much development resources as Betaflight does. A lot of people are working on Betaflight, and so he was able to take advantage of that. While he, on the other hand, was able to help clean up a lot of Betaflight code and add in things like the configuration abstraction layer and a few other things. So I do wonder, though, there's people out there who are flying Cleanflight because that for a reason, and I wonder if those people are mad that all of a sudden they've been hoodwinked into flying Betaflight.
Yeah, I'm sad to see it go, because the good thing about Cleanflight was that it was so simple for people just starting the hobby, and you know, is new, and there was less concern or head scratching. Do you know what I mean? It was always, and you know, like a while ago, there was problems with like the motor outputs on, you know, as soon as you armed and stuff like that on Betaflight, and people just don't realize that, you know, like Betaflight could potentially ruin your day.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, Betaflight, it's still called Betaflight, right? But I have to say that the amount of testing, by the time that you get to an official release, not just a release candidate, but an actual release, Betaflight is really stable in every case that I've seen. I can't think of a case. There have been some bugs that have required hot fixes, but I can't think of a bug, and if someone corrects me, I'll acknowledge it, but I can't think of a bug that would have been like a safety issue, like your motors spin when they're not supposed to, that made it into a final release. So I do see that the pace at which Betaflight updates can be overwhelming for people, especially noobs. And to that I say, well, you don't have to update to every single latest one. You could just skip one if you want. But I think that we'll see that Cleanflight probably does not develop as fast as Betaflight does. It sort of did a big jump to catch up, but I'll bet that it will slow down again because, I mean, Dominic still is who he is, and I don't know. We'll see.
Oh man.
I think the other thing I was going to say, just to add to that, is that I think Betaflight has made some pretty, decent steps to be non-threatening to the new person as well. And sometimes it's hard, I guess, for any of us that have been doing it for a decent amount of time to be objective from that point of view. But I mean, if you look at the tooltips now, most people will just kind of rush over that. But if you actually hover the mouse over and look at the tooltips, all this stuff's getting updated, and codes that we had to go into the CLI to mess around with are no longer in the CLI. They're simplified. They're one figure and a tooltip now. And that progression has also happened, but maybe some of us have been doing it for a while, haven't stopped to notice it. So I think it is getting better on that front too.
Yeah, you have got stuff like expert mode. Like if you haven't ticked that, then you don't get bombarded with loads of extra stuff. And I'll agree, Betaflight has, I mean, for a while it was like Betaflight on stock PIDs were absolutely amazing. I can't think of what release it was, but it was nice to just flash and go for a while,
and it's just gotten better.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I'm just like, romanticizing about, Cleanflight. I guess. I mean, he never did fix the GPS.
Right. These days, I think if you want to fly a Cleanflight type board, then your choice for acro performance and racing is clearly Betaflight, and your choice for GPS assisted flight is iNav, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure who's flying Cleanflight, honestly. And I don't mean any disrespect. I feel bad saying that because I have a lot of respect for Dominic. But for a long time, I've wondered who's flying Cleanflight, because Betaflight, well, up until recently when they did the rebase, Betaflight flies better in acro mode, period. And iNav flies better in, I mean, Cleanflight was never very good at GPS assisted modes and really didn't have any at all. So I'm not sure who wanted Cleanflight. Maybe people who were just scared of Betaflight and all the knobs and dials were put off by it. The other thing Dominic said in his comments about, the choice to rebase was that there's a much more active Betaflight community right now. So people who want support, if you look at the Betaflight thread, you're going to get a lot quicker answers on there than on the Cleanflight thread, although it can be kind of like drinking from a fire hose to keep up. So.
Brazos is kicked off with his Raceflight 1, by far the easiest setup for the new user.
Yeah,
that's
I want Baseflight or Baseflight. I want Betaflight so bad to do wizards. Like if you look even at something like Libre Pilot, right? Which I haven't used Libre Pilot, but I understand they have wizards. And I've set up Raceflight 1 some time ago. I haven't actually got the copter in the air, but the wizards, if you just go to a simulator, right, and they have the transmitter setup wizard where they say, raise your throttle, lower your throttle, left, right, etc. Why does Betaflight not do this? And I've said this to them on the Slack, and I'm going to keep harping on it until they do it. They need to. That would make such a big difference.
Yeah, it goes back to it actually goes back before Libre Pilot's Open Pilot. That was one of the things Open Pilot really got right. It was a very, very useful and easy to follow wizard that just took a lot of the headache out. And Raceflight, their latest, the first release candidate came out, I think it was yesterday. So I've been following RF1, and the wizard, it's really solid. Everything's worked. Nothing that I can see or heard of so far that requires any hot fixing. So it's I think it's looking good. Have you flown it yet, Josh?
I haven't. This was several months ago. I think it was even months ago. Yeah, it was a very early release of Raceflight 1, and there was a little bit of there were two little glitches in it that hit me. They didn't hit everybody, but they happened to hit me, and I'm so busy that I said, okay, well, I'm going to put it down for now, and I'll pick it up later, and because I just didn't want to spend a lot of time fiddling with it, and it's not fair to criticize it if it's not released yet, right? So I just said, okay. So I haven't come back to it yet. The build it's that one right behind me on the wall. That's the Shen. No, not the hat. That's my ready-made RC hat that I should be wearing. Yeah, no. I'm gonna try. Say, I've started posting the build series for that quad, which is going to be my final motivation to actually get Raceflight 1 on it and fly it. I'm always 5 weeks behind on 7 different projects, and so what I'm working on at any given moment is whatever thing is most pressingly obvious that I need to get it done. And since I've started posting the build series for that copter, people are going to start asking, well, how does it fly? So I really need to get it flying. I can't ignore it anymore.
Man.
So have any of you guys flown Raceflight? Is it amazing? Raceflight 1?
Yeah,
Raceflight 1.
I've flown the latest one as of yesterday or the day before, and I not long ago, maybe a week ago, put up a video of flying Raceflight 1, and I was actually stunned that because I always fly stock PIDs and then start tuning once I see where I'm at, and it was just pretty incredible actually for straight out the box PIDs. They're definitely doing something right. It needs a little tweak, but I'm very impressed so far.
Now let me ask you this, because I've heard too many people say this for it not to be true. Too many people have said, I flew Raceflight 1 and I was stunned, amazed, blown away, whatever. So there's got to be something there, and I'm looking forward to it. But when you say stunned how well it flew with stock PIDs, did it? If you take like the best tune, say Betaflight quad you could tune versus the stock PIDs or even the tune PIDs, is Raceflight 1 like on another level entirely, or is it starts out at the same level?
I wouldn't say it starts out at the same level. I think if that was the case, I would personally consider that lucky. I don't think I'd say, wow, it's just completely nailed it out of the box. I mean, there's no kind of auto tuning here, but there's something in there that there's a high level. It's well above what I would expect it to be. I'd expect to go out there and start to have to move whole numbers around to push it close to where I want it. I mean, this particular quad, the CG is quite good. It's a pure X frame, so I expect maybe to bring pitch down a little bit than where it would normally come. And I was fairly stunned to see that all I had to do was put the rates up where I wanted them, and I was able to. It felt familiar very quickly, and I was able to just get on and fly without thinking about the tune too much. So
let me try to reframe the question. I remember the first time I flew, way back when, going from. Do you remember gyro LPF equals 42? And then Boris came up with the soft filters. And the first time I flew with the soft filters instead of gyro LPF, it felt like taking like fuzzy glasses off your face. Yeah. It was a revelation. The copter felt so much more connected, precise, and then it just kept getting better from there. But I'm wondering if Raceflight is like that, if it's like you've ascended, or if it's the best of the current level, but you get there easier. You see what I'm asking?
Yeah, I see where you're going.
I mean, I could just fly it for myself, right? But that would be too easy. Let's just talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's somewhere between those 2 points. Without saying it's not. I don't think it's quite as much as a revelation of that, but it was enough for me to go, wow, that's really quite locked. There's very little for me to do here. Nice. It felt, I'd say the best way to put it for me, it felt like perhaps the tuning envelopes are larger. Yeah, that made more sense.
Absolutely.
I think that's probably a better way to describe it. But I haven't really got my hands fully dirty in terms of the tuning yet, so because I've been able to be lazy. But yeah, I guess we'll find that out, and so will you, I guess.
I've felt that way about Betaflight, that the latest improvements in the last, whatever months or so have been not just made the copter fly better. They've not just made the copter able to fly better at the top of the envelope, but they've extended the envelope where you could get a pretty decent tune, and that gives you more freedom to tune the PIDs to your feel. So you could say, I like a sharper feeling copter or I like a softer feeling copter, but you're not going to get any objectively bad effects anywhere in that range. Whereas before, you had to tune to fix the bad things, and then the feel that you got was what you were stuck with. But on the flip side, it makes my job harder as a sort of a tuning guru, because nowadays people are like, well, how do I tune? And I'm just like, I put the default PIDs on and go fly. And I don't know, if you want it to feel different, go ahead. But it's kind of no guideline for tuning anymore because nothing bad happens.
Yeah,
it's like the biggest envelope before was always, well, I guess still is always yaw, but yeah, it does feel like the other axes are getting that kind of width to them. almost like a sort of, as you say, as that larger area now almost becomes like tuning set point weight or something, where you're actually kind of fine tuning within that envelope. Interesting.
Has anyone like flown a quad recently that didn't have, one shot active braking, the old protocol ESCs, where it kind of just drifts around and you kind of like guide it like a granny who's not too sure whether she's at a supermarket? That's the only way I can describe it. Like,
No, Jack, we
Not
are-
done that. No reason.
I flew one the other day, and I remember that. What was it? LP, whatever filter active.
Gyro
filtering.
LPF.
Yeah, low pass filter. Oh my word. Yeah, he just changed everything. It was just like, Andrew came up with a good point. Is it a revolution or an evolution?
Right. Yep, I like that.
Yeah, so
The Raceflight guys, of course, would say, and by the Raceflight guys, I mean Preston. He would say, "Oh my God, it's a revolution! It's the best thing ever! It cooks your breakfast." And I'm just never sure how much of that is blarney, and how much is legit.
Yeah.
But so many pilots are also saying it's amazing. And if you look at the racers, a lot of the racers, and they fly what works. They're not screwing around, and they're flying Raceflight. So there's something to it, I guess.
okay.
Yeah.
Loads of people in the chat are asking, Tone, what are you eating?
I am eating a patty, Jamaican patty,
All right.
full of vegetables.
Okay. Josh, one question I did want to ask you about was there was a guy who posted up about the Furious D, and someone broke their goggles because
The True D.
True D, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Due to ripping too much current and a ribbon cable, apparently.
Yep.
You had any problems? What's your thoughts? Blah blah blah.
So here's the issue in case people are not up on it. And this is true for all of the Fat Shark modules that have a screen. The 2 pineapples is probably omitted, but all the Fat Shark modules that have a screen, they basically pull more current. This is Fat Shark's position, is they pull more current than the goggles are designed for at startup. There's a startup rush of current. After the goggles are running, then they're pulling about my measurements. They're pulling about 50% more amps. So it goes from about 450 milliamps to about 600 and so milliamps, 650 milliamps, which is fine. But there's a big rush at the beginning, and the issue that I believe that they're talking about is that there's a ribbon cable that carries the current, and the ribbon cable has 2 positive wires in it, but only 1 negative wire, which is enough for the goggle electronics, but not enough for the modules. And in a very, very small % of cases, the ribbon cable burns out because it overheats and eventually it wears out. I spoke with a person in the industry who I'm not free to name, who said it is like less than 1% of cases, in his opinion, or her opinion. No, but it does happen to some people. And if that happens, well, number one, don't call Fat Shark support, because they will tell you to go screw yourself. They will charge you, I think, $70 or $80 to fix it, was what people have told me. And then you can just order the new ribbon cable and replace it, is the other thing you can do if you know the specs for the cable. But it doesn't affect very many people at all. The other thing, though, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I got an email. I was emailing the guys today, and they told me the 3.1 update has lowered the voltage on startup. I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah, what they'll do is, for example, they will not power on the screen immediately. So they'll power up one radio, then they'll wait a second, they'll power up the other radio, then they'll wait a second, they'll power up the screen. And they can manipulate that to reduce the inrush current. So that's nice. The other thing that just got announced today is that with the Furious FP True D V3, there is a defect in the manufacturing that means that if you press on the module, I guess you'd have to have the cover off, you can cause the 2 boards to touch each other in such a way that a regulator shorts out and burns out. and they've releasing, and apparently they're sending this to all, basically everybody who has the TrueDV3. I think it's a little 3D printed plastic separator that goes in between the boards. Spacer, thank you, that you can install in between the boards. So I guess the moral of that story is if you have a TrueDV3, don't squish it with your fingers while it's powered on. I don't know, and try to get that spacer and install it. But again, I think this is an issue that affected a very small number of people, and that most people are not going to be affected by it. Of course, the people who have the problems shout the loudest, and do rightly so.
Yeah.
All right. Bradders says about the back to Raceflight, says the defaults are always high filters, so the covers a bigger range of quads. And Erin asks why yaw often has so much jitter. Oster Arm says it's because the plane the motors are in, it gets more vibration. Is that true?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. The bit about yaw, I think that makes sense that you're going to get more vibration on the yaw plane than because in order to get vibration on the pitch and roll plane, you need the motor to be moving or vibrating up and down, or you need a variance in the thrust. If the prop is on, you need a sort of a regular variance in the thrust. And if your bearings are tight, right, and your C-clips are tight, your motor bell is pressed on to the right tension, then you shouldn't really have very much up and down vibration. You're going to get some up and down vibration because of resonance. So the frame will essentially, oscillate like a string at a very, very small magnitude, and that'll create a little bit, but most of it is going to be in the yaw axis. That makes a lot of sense. Anytime there's a difference in the torque of the motors between the two diagonally opposing motors, you'll get a yaw moment, and then you'll get some vibration there. The twitching is very interesting. Why do we see the twitching on the yaw gyro the most and not the other gyros? And I really don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
There's another thing that was interesting is on top of what you're saying about the C-clip, and this was, I guess, one advantage from the C-clips compared to we now have the screws that go in the bottom of the hollow shafts. If you get that tension wrong, because some of them aren't necessarily going to go up and as the screw goes into the bottom of the shaft, have the perfect amount of tension. Some of those shafts are actually ever so slightly shorter, so that you set that tension yourself. And if you put too much tension in, you're pressing on those inner races of the bearings, and you are going to have problems, as well as if it's too loose. And as Josh said, you'll have that sort of vertical vibration. So if you clean or service your motors, when you put them back together and they've got that hollow shaft with the screw in the end, you have to be kind of aware of that, because you can end up with more problems than when you started.
And what I've done, if I have a press fit shaft or a shaft that's got a grub screw, what I'll do is I'll install the C-clip on the shaft. I'll insert the shaft in the bell, right? The shaft will come up from the bottom, the bell will come onto the top, and I'll take a C-clamp and I will screw down the C-clamp so it presses in the shaft to the bell. And that allows you to set the tension very, very precisely, because you can give just another 1/8 of a turn on the screw on the C-clamp, you see, and it'll press it in just that 0.5 millimeter more until the tension is exactly where you want it.
Right, great idea.
But honestly, I can't remember the last time I actually serviced a motor, because it's so much hassle for so little pay.
We've got so much bad weather at the minute. I mean, just the other day we went into the muddiest field, and there was no option at that point. Yeah. If you can get away with it, why bother? I agree.
Fly them till they're junk, and then replace them. Maybe that's the attitude of a big shot YouTube star who doesn't have to buy his own motors anymore. That's right.
So yeah, like Josh is just balling on a budget. Do you know what I mean? He breaks a prop, he changes the motor.
Change the cord.
I try to remember that I'm still at heart a cheap bastard. I feel like being a cheap bastard is its own reward. And if people were pouring money on me and you can get expensive stuff, and I'm like, I still want cheap stuff, because I just feel bad about.
He's keeping it real.
I try.
Mate.
I do my best.
Kiss unfortunately had a weird sort of update. I don't know whether any of you guys noticed, but one of few people were saying that they were having fires and that. And they released a new update. I haven't heard anything else, but I wondered if any of you guys, I know Josh doesn't care because it's Kiss,
I haven't been back to KISS for ages. I've you know, I did fly it for a good 6 months, so I can't be accused of not being objective about all the different flight controllers. I try and fly them all, but I haven't been back. I mean, my biggest problem with KISS, as I mentioned before, was just the issue with lifting solder pads and just the level of the hardware. Not on the ESC side. I think ESCs are great, but the actual flight board, there's been too many issues with that, and yeah, I haven't been back to it. I will go back to it, and I will have a look at the latest stuff. But as of now, I'm out. It's just Raceflight and Betaflight at the minute.
Traitor. Well, not
flies great. Don't get me wrong. KISS flies great. There's no question. It's a fantastic flight controller. As I said, my issue was with the hardware. But yeah, I don't know. Jay flies KISS, don't you, Jay?
Yeah, mine was, I think, 103 version of the hardware board, and I've not had any problems. It's crashed well. It's flown well. It still flies well. And actually, I really like the newest update. But I don't have KISS ESCs, though.
I don't know. I was skeptical, like, you know, how can an update? I said, no, oh yeah, hang on. I've got, Erwin asked Joshua is into HD like Connex with the new fat shirt goggles. He wants to know what you think of the new HD stuff.
Well, I up until this weekend, I would have said I haven't flown it yet, but I can actually. I went this weekend to Louisville, and I met Boba Fett and some of his friends, and we hung out and flew for a little bit. And I asked him to bring his Connex set. And here's one thing that you need to know about Connex. I said to him, "Hey, will you bring your Connex? Will you bring your Pro Sight so I can try it?" I said, "Hey, have you tried Clearview? You want to try my Clearview?" He said, "Oh yeah, I have tried Clearview. I don't have one. Do you want to trade me for my Pro Sight? I'll trade you the goggles and the Pro Sight for your Clearview."
Wow.
So for people who ask, you know, well, Pro Sight versus Clearview, I kind of feel like that story tells you something. Yeah. I tried the Pro Sight. I can say this. I say this positive about it. It looks amazing. The resolution is unreal. The latency for me is acceptable, but I also fly the Runcam Eagle and find its latency acceptable. And I'll tell a little sub story about that. Then I'll come back to the Connex. So Boba Fett again, he said, "Man, I can't fly the Eagle. The latency is no good." And I said, "Well, that's interesting." And then I watched his FPV feed while he flew, and holy crap. I was in my mind, I was cringing because I would have crashed into 7 trees while he was just going. His response time, his reaction time is so much faster than mine. I literally was a half a second behind him, seeing the crash and cringing while he dodged the tree and went around it and kept going. So I wonder if people who say that latency is an issue either on the Eagle or on the Connex have much faster reaction times than me, and that's why I don't notice a difference. Anyway. I thought the Pro Sight, the way it broke up was no good. When we flew behind an obstacle, it breaks up in this kind of smeary way. Have you ever had your video like miss a keyframe and all video kind of smears like you're on acid or something? Not that any of you have ever done that, of course. The Pro Sight does that, and I found it really hard to fly through. And I flew the exact same pattern with my goggles afterwards, and it was staticky but completely flyable. So I say you combine that with the fact that the receiver and the camera are like $150. So that's for every quad you want to outfit. That's another $150. And if you break one, you're boned. And the camera's exposure is not that great. The color's not that great. So I think Pro Sight is going to be really exciting like 1 or 2 generations from now. But right now, it's too expensive and it doesn't perform well. Maybe if you were on like a camera drone where you needed the high def FPV feed and you weren't concerned about latency and penetration, but not for racing for sure, not for acro. That's my opinion.
I fly the on one of my quads, you know, the higher resolution HS117, the like MT 1200. That when it goes to Tony's been out, and Tony was nice enough to go fetch my quad from the other field. When it gets to a certain darkness, the frame rate goes really weird and smeary, and then I crash, and then poor Tony has to go get it.
It was pretty dark, Jack.
I know, but
I've found that the Eagle at least has really excellent light handling. I'm not sure if it's better than 1177 with the IR filter removed. I'm not sure about that, but the dynamic range and the light handling on the Eagle is I think spectacular, and one of the reasons I stick with it.
Then Joshua,
Metal Danny's Clearview videos. in his underground racing. It's amazing how
Mhm.
much difference it makes.
Yeah. Clearview is the real deal. When I first got a Clearview to review, the basic question I wanted to answer was, is it marketing BS and hype, or is it the real deal? And I can say without hesitation that it's the real deal. It is the best ground station you can get today for analog, for sure. And the only question is whether it's worth the money to you. That's the only
How
question.
much is it?
It is a lot of money.
400 for the racing version and 700 for the pro version. The racing version is the same RF performance and magic algorithms, but there are some convenience features locked out, basically, is what it boils down to.
What's its footprint like? Is it anything like the Connex system?
I'll show you. Hold on.
Massive. I've never seen
Talk
or
amongst
like. That's it.
Look at Metal Danny's videos. He's got some Clearview stuff, and
Yeah.
it is
How
really
even is
amazing. And
Clean?
it's like underground car park racing, and there's no breakup.
That's the
Yeah.
that's it.
Sorry
So-
for talking over your tone. I didn't mean to. You seem quiet. Do you want me to turn you up? Tone. Speak.
Maybe I should do that.
Keep talking, Tony.
Hello, 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 hello.
That's better.
Yeah. Andrew asks, or somebody asks, how even is Clearview different? All I can say is if you want to see how Clearview is different, then you need to go to YouTube. You look at Metal Danny's channel, or you look at my channel. You search for Clearview, and you'll find some videos with side-by-side comparisons, and you can see there's no glitching or breakup. There's no full screen rolling. There's no white slashes when you get the multipathing. When it breaks up, number one, it doesn't break up as much. It simply has better range. And number two, when it does break up, it's a very analog style fuzz that's very able to fly through and very predictable, as opposed to your picture is kind of good and then it's gone. It doesn't do that. I don't mean to turn this into a Clearview commercial, but if you want to know how it does it, no one knows. It's a secret. It's a patented secret, and people speculate, but the bottom line is it's magic.
Wizards.
It's pretty magic.
When I said about the footprint of it, I meant like inside the quad. You know,
Oh.
like with the, yeah, like I don't know. Is it as big as an immersion?
No, it's a
transmitter or
it's a standard. It works with any standard analog transmitter. You don't have to have a special transmitter.
it's all in the
It's all in the
receiver.
box.
It's all in here. Yeah,
What
yeah.
Special
Pink-
And
magic
that's,
filter.
and that's why. That's sorry. Go ahead.
No, we're just amazed at the witchcraft and the magic that's going inside.
Kill it with fire. Is that what you said, Tony? Is that what you said? Is that
No,
your
I
answer?
said pink smoke comes out if you open it.
Yeah.
That's why I think this is better than ProSight. One of the reasons is that you can have a $30 camera and a $10, a $20 transmitter, and you can get shockingly good performance. And that translates to every single quadcopter you have. You put the money into the ground station, and you have normal equipment and the copter, and I think that's much more cost effective. If you only had one copter to outfit, then a Clearview with an analog camera and a ProSight are about the same price. You know, the Clearview Racing, you're going to come in around $500 or so, and that's close to parity. But if you have two copters, you spend $50 for a camera and a video transmitter for the analog copter, and you spend $150 for the ProSight, is the numbers that I looked up last. I think those numbers are approximately right. And so if you have a standard race stable of three copters, right, you take three of the same copter to the race, which is what I've heard that some racers do. I'm not much of a racer. Well, now you're $450 more expensive, $300 more expensive for the ProSight compared to, $50, $60 more expensive, something, $100. I've lost track of the math. You see what I'm getting at?
And
Wow.
is there any latency in that? How that system works that we know of?
The designer, I asked him this, and let me tell you, first of all, the guy that I've been talking to, Iftron Tech is basically one guy. I'm sure he doesn't run the whole company by himself, but every time I've talked to Iftron Tech, it's always the same guy. And he is the engineering wizard who designed the Clearview. So when I tell you this, I want you to know that I wasn't just talking to some marketing guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. I said, how much latency does it add? And he said, we designed it for 0 latency. And I said, well, that's impossible. Any image processing algorithm is going to add some latency. And he said, We designed it for 0 latency. And I'm like, okay, but I assume he means 0 latency. I don't know how that's possible, but he insists, and he's not a liar or an idiot. So I'm going to take
the key word was designed it for. In other words, they designed it for that, but they might have.
No, I think he meant it. I think he meant it. I don't know how that's possible, and he wouldn't elaborate because he holds his secrets closely. Yeah.
And can we use just any antennas on that Clearview box?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You can. I use it typically. I have Triumphs in there now. That's what I put on it typically. Any antenna will work. Directionals will work. One thing to keep in mind is that it is not actually doing diversity. It's a little unfortunate because sometimes they do have diversity on their products. It's not on this one. It's just this digitally enhanced video receiver. So if you do the diversity thing where you have a directional here and an omni here, that's not ideal. You want the same antennas on it. And if you're going to use directionals, you want 2 of the same ones pointing the same direction, because I assume that it means that it's like combining the signals in some way, but it wants the same signal coming in both, and then it's doing some kind of, I don't know what, to put them together.
Like interpolation between the 2 sides, yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's whether they get copied and then cheaper versions, and then we actually all get to win for a lot cheaper.
Everybody says that. Oh, Banggood's coming out with the next version soon, and I mean, I wonder if he's got some actual secret sauce in here. Like if he's actually invented something novel and hard to do, Banggood's not going to copy it. They're certainly not going to copy it by opening it up and looking at it. I'm not going to open this up and show it to you, but I've looked on the inside, and like it would be challenging to reverse engineer this. Let's just say that steps have been taken to prevent reverse engineering. And he says that it's not just one thing. It's not just one trick that makes it work well. It's many separate, interesting, innovative tricks all put together into a cumulative, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So it's possible that someone could reverse engineer or guess at one of those tricks, but somebody guessing all of them and putting them together, he says he doesn't think it's going to happen.
Have they scraped the stuff off the chips?
I don't remember. I would assume so. I don't remember. I haven't had it open in a while.
Alien technology.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you on the circuit board it says, if you can read this, your warranty is void.
Yeah.
See, it doesn't always matter whether somebody can copy that exact same product, but it inspires other people to develop other products, similar operations. So it should still see benefit, wide-reaching. Hopefully,
I hope so.
Yeah.
Look at the Overlord. I can tell you that the Overlord, in terms of pure video quality, was close to the Clearview. The difference is that the Overlord was using directional antennas, and so with this one, you can put a 2 dB Omni on this and get similar range to a 10 dB directional antenna. I'm not kidding either. I'm not making that up. It's in the ballpark. And what that means is the Omni, you're going to have a very spherical coverage, whereas the directional, you're going to have a very focused coverage. So other people are coming close, but with some limitations. The other thing is the Overlord had diversity switching problems. When it switched antennas, sometimes you would get a glitch, whereas the Clearview doesn't have diversity switching, so it doesn't have that problem. But yeah, things like the Overlord, I think, are what we might see as a Chinese sort of reaching towards the Clearview. But I don't think they're there yet.
Interesting. So, Joshua, I've got to ask, what batteries are you flying these days? What's your favourite?
Let's see.
We did go through quite.
He's going to bring back a huge bucket of.
I know. The only guess like just wanders off randomly.
Yeah, that's good.
Never.
It leaves us in suspense.
He's going to wheel something back on his trolley. Or...
He's like, "See you later, guys."
Hold on, here's my ammo crate.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm flying right now. I've got a bunch.
With the basket.
I've got a bunch of these Infinities that I'm flying. I'm doing a long-term test where I did half of these I broke in and half I didn't, and then I'm going to fly them for like 2-3 months and see how they perform at the end. So, but I think these are really good batteries for a budget. They're about $20, maybe $23. They're not the absolute best performers I've ever seen on my bench, but they're solid performers. And the advantage I think of them is that just about anybody in the world can order these from Banggood and probably get them. So they're pretty regularly in stock. So that's one I'm flying a lot lately. And I'll show you these. I just tested these. These are the Thunder Power Adrenalines. They did spectacularly well in my test. They're not just hype. At least on the bench, they did really, really well.
Yeah, Thunder Power are great. I used to use those on my helis back in the days, and they were always a brand that everyone turned to for pretty serious performance, but they're expensive.
That's why I like these. These are my go-tos when people say I just got into the hobby, what battery should I buy? I think these are a spectacular blend of price and performance. If you can get a Turnigy, like Turnigy 1300 graphene, sometimes they go on sale for like $18. Yeah, you should buy that, but you have to catch them on sale, and you just don't know. So these are always $20 all the time, and so that's a safe bet. There's other one that I'm going to show you also performed very, very well in the test. Not the best ever, but once you get into the upper echelon of the testing, it's kind of like, you know, who's number 1 and who's number 5. It's kind of all just mixed up. In flight, you'd never know the difference. And so I'm flying these. These are True Power, and they did very, very well in my recent round of I haven't released this round of testing yet, but I have done it, and they did very well. And so that's another one that I'm flying right now. Anyway, yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, Switchy asks about the Revolution packs. No,
I don't know what that is.
No.
Oh, the Revos. Here's what I have to say. Yeah, gotcha. So we're talking about Revo Electrics, right? I think
The Revolution packs.
I don't know what. I think he means Revo Electrics. A couple of people in chat have said they'll wait for a Clearview module. I asked Iftron about making a module, and the problem is that you cannot get the circuitry into a Fat Shark module sized thing. What he said was he would have to build his own goggles in order for that to happen. And it's not, I don't know if that's something that's going to happen, but don't hold out for a Clearview Fat Shark module. That's not going to happen. Maybe you could have something like a belt pack, or maybe something like, you know, like a battery that goes on the other side of your head. I'm making this up. This is not coming from Clearview. These are just, when he said they couldn't do a module, I said, well, what about this? What about that? But don't hold out for a Clearview Fat Shark module. That's not going to happen.
It wasn't that long ago before the FPV backpack meant just for your transmitter and battery to power the thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Does Clearview do all the bands?
That's a good question. I know there are some channels it doesn't do, and I'm not just talking about low race. There are some of the. I should be careful. I'm going to say something incorrect and get myself in trouble and get yelled at because I misrepresent the product. I know that there was a receiver. Somebody was on a channel at the field, and I went to tune to it, and I couldn't get there on this firmware. Maybe the firmware has been updated. It was like, 5645 or something. So it does all the channels, but there are some higher ones and some lower ones it doesn't do. However, I will say, I think there are some channels on Raceband, for example, that are not in the ISM band. So it's technically not legal for us to be using them, at least here in the US. So it's possible that Clearview is just actually being a responsible citizen and not letting you use channels that are technically illegal, but I don't know. If you're talking about low race, like 5300, it doesn't do that. And yeah.
I think Clegger's just asked, how did Joshua get into RC?
We covered that last time, but let's go again.
I got into RC when I was 15. My uncle gave me a RC plane, and I flew it for a couple weeks and then crashed it in the woods and lost it and forgot about RC forever. And then a friend of mine, like
moved
3 years
up to the mountain, became a monk, threw it in the river. Sorry.
A friend of mine a few years ago got a Phantom, and I was super impressed with, like, if all you've ever seen are fixed wing airplanes, a Phantom is just mind-boggling, right? Like, just mind-boggling. A multi-rotor is mind-boggling, and that got me inspired to get back into RC again.
Man, that was an old Joshua Bardwell reference. Oh man, that's crazy. By the way, you nearly killed me. Like, we were chatting about this earlier with Say Yes to the Dress.
And I didn't make that.
Yeah, but you posted it though.
Yeah.
You owned that.
Yeah. That
So
guy.
do you want to cover that? Do you want to cover why you
it's
wear
online.
dresses?
I wear I wear skirts, not dresses. A dress has
Yeah.
a dress has a top. A skirt goes on around your waist, just for the record. Skirts, sarongs, etc. People in countries like Indonesia and India and Asian countries are not surprised or put out by this, but people in Western countries are not used to it, and think I'm cross dressing or something. I'm not.
Nothing wrong with it, man. I keep telling Tony that when I
People
try and
ask-
talk with him.
People ask, why are you wearing
David
your
Beckham with one.
Did he? I'm in good company.
He has.
Yeah.
David Beckham.
Yeah.
I've seen
I
him in a
think
dress.
Tony would look rather
skirt.
fetching.
I'll wear a skirt next week. But
Kill.
it's a bit cold here.
Yeah. You'll need some leggings.
It needs to be hot.
You can wear
Tony
them with
hasn't.
leggings, thermal underwear.
There's some chat on batteries still.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Yeah, Chad's asking about Thunder Powers and adrenaline versus tattoo line on the Reeve Electrics graphene versus drone bits.
Yeah. I can say that I've tested Tattoo R line. I have tested Adrenaline. And I have not tested drone bits. R line and Adrenaline are both very good batteries. I run a test. I like to say about my battery testing is I run basically one test. It's a 60 amp discharge, and I feel like that test is a very good indicator of how a battery is going to perform in the air. The amount of sag, a battery that sags less and stays cool, is I think going to perform better in the air and last longer. But at the end of the day, I'm not running 50, 100 cycles through these batteries because I have other things to do with my time, right? So for example, Tattoo, they advertise that one of their selling points is that their batteries don't puff and they last a long time. If that's true, maybe I don't know it. So you don't pick these batteries just solely based on the results of my testing. If there's a battery that performed well in my testing, but it has a better price, or you think it lasts longer, then take that one. Don't just take the one that did the best in my testing. So Tattoo, R-Line, Thunder Power, all very good. Reeve Electrics, I will say this about Reeve Electrics. The Reeve Electrics high volts that I tested were terrible. And what I mean by that is they performed very well for the first like 5 or 10 cycles. They got super hot and they puffed literally in some cases within like 10 cycles. They were puffed, they were sagging, they were useless. I tested recently some Reeve Electrics graphenes, not high volt, just graphenes. They performed okay, but not spectacular. I have a little bit of suspicion, I guess, a little bit of hesitance around the Reeve Electrics name because some of their batteries have been so short-lived. Maybe other ones are fine, but I would pick a different brand personally.
Isn't there only like 4 factories what make batteries anyway?
I've heard that said. Yeah, they just make them to spec.
Yeah, just
The cells.
change the name.
Yeah. But the ability of a supplier or the ability of a vendor to manage their supplier, I mean, if you look at somebody who, they can't manage the facility, the warehouse, the manufacturing, don't underestimate something like if you have a good relationship with your supplier that you can consistently get good matched cells and not, because a lot of times these battery manufacturers, they'll put out a battery, it performs great, and then the next batch performs terrible and they can't keep it consistent. And I think that's probably what the really good manufacturers or the really good vendors are doing is they're staying on top of China and they're getting the packs consistently. They're doing QC and they're making sure that what you end up with is consistently a good product.
Are you using like some of the new Sky RC chargers in order to measure your internal resistance, or have you got like a rig or?
No.
Sorry, man. I just wondered, like, what how your setup and testing's going.
Yeah, I test the internal resistance using my AccuCell 6 charger. I recently did a video where I checked the AccuCell 6 and the reactor charger and the ISDT against, that ESR meter, the white box you can get. It's like $80 and it's a dedicated ESR meter.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that the results were just all over the place. One meter would measure 60 microohms or milliohms, and one would measure 30, and they were just all over the place. They weren't even consistent. Like one was consistently 10, and I concluded that internal resistance measurements are unreliable. So I just focus on the battery's performance. I suck current from the battery and I watch the voltage sag and the temperature, which I think is the closest approximation to what we do in real life, right? If you hit the throttle and the battery sags to 13.6, 12.5, and the copter drops out of the air, that's bad. And if you hit the throttle and the voltage stays high and the copter keeps punching, that's good. And so that's why I do the test that I do.
Yeah, it's more real life in a way rather than just numbers.
Yeah. Real life would be flying the copter, of course, but then the problem is it's not repeatable. So I've thought about doing like a punch out test where I do a full throttle punch out and I record what's happening. But the problem is the air density on any given day, the altitude, the altitude of the punch out, the length of the punch out, the copter's bearings could get saggy and whatever, things could change and it's not repeatable. So I feel like my test is a good balance of repeatability and realisticness.
Josh, just wanted to ask you a question about the new Betaflight controller. Specifically, that's got a current sensor on board, hasn't it?
Yep.
Has that caused any interference in the video? Because there's always that question of having maybe the current sensor on the same workspace, whether that's going to start causing any kind of noise issue. How's it been? No,
it's been fine, and other people I've talked to have said that the Betaflight F3 has very clear video. It has a filter on it, and it's not just an LC filter, but it's also got a diode. I don't know. I'm not an expert on designing filters, but they've clearly put some thought into the filtering of the video. I think people who are having video noise oftentimes have messed up their ground. Like they've got their video ground in a different location than their VTX ground, the camera ground and VTX ground in different locations, perhaps. I don't know.
Ground loops.
Yeah. So, but no, in general, I think my experience, and of course, I'm only one guy, but I've talked to other people who say that the video on the Betaflight board is pretty clean.
Fantastic.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna call time, guys. Josh, thank you for thank you for coming on and
thank you.
chatting to me. And you've been great as always. I've learned stuff. And it's always a pleasure to tune in and go on your channel and see what you're up to. And I hope that one day you'll get those Tyrannus switch screw bits.
Yep, I'm going to get that wrench. Thank you for telling me where that is.
Yeah, not a problem.
Banggood plug.
Yeah, king of Banggood. The only thing is you've unwillingly entered into a contract where I insist you do a review on them.
The wrenches?
Yeah, please.
It'll be this massive hype train video.
Oh, nah, just go to town.
You need this wrench.
Yeah. Well, it's always better than like stabbing yourself in the finger, or worse, the scratch with a screwdriver trying to undo the little nuts on the screws on the Tyrannus.
You don't want that.
Yeah.
You should see my Tyrannus is so grungy. You don't even want to know. People are like, "Ooh, I hydro dipped my Tyrannus," and I'm like, "Would that cover up the dirt? Because that would be okay."
When your Tyrannus is grungy, as if it smells of teen spirit.
Very good.
Right, guys, thank you very much. Unfortunately, it is my last hosting on Let's Drone Out. I will, Jay and Andrew will be taking over. Hopefully, NJ will fill my place. I think
be here as often as I can. Sure.
Yeah. I think he's more than capable. The show will move over. We've got a dedicated Let's Drone Out channel, which I am going to put into the chat and on the bottom of this video. And the guys will also you plan on moving the time so we're not so you're not taking on and competing with the RC groups.
Yeah, I mean,
podcast.
we'll obviously it may change draft hours slightly, but we'll be sure to let you know before we actually start doing that.
Yeah.
But
So
as of next week, it'll be the same time, 8 p.m. GMT on a Thursday.
yeah. So apart from that, yeah. So none of my hooliganism. But it's been good, you know. Let Drone Out will always be my baby, and I'll be around, and hopefully I'll help the guys get interesting people, and I will just be a producer. So it's all good, man. But yeah, thank you for like tuning in, and you know, like it's been it's been a blast, guys. Thank you very much.
You know, it's been fun with you over this last year and a half, Jack.
Yeah, man.
I had fun. So
yeah.
And thanks to everyone that's listened in that year and a half to this day.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it, man. I've met some good people along the way and had some really good times. And I don't know, I might start up a project when I'm feeling a bit better. But that's all from me, man. Over to Jay, NJ, Tony. If I let him out of my sex dungeon. That's it. Signal for help, Tony. Signal for help.
Safe word.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Take care and good night.
Oh.